L.G. Durand once said, "We have become a society of indulgent consumers, resulting in rapidly increasing debt, both personally and as a nation." You're not a cheapskate, but you're also not exactly a high roller. You just have some money-saving goals, and every time it looks like you're getting closer to reaching them, something goes wrong. Turns out there are several little things you may be doing that are keeping you from saving money no matter how hard you work at it. Number 10. Unrealistic goals. There is nothing wrong with setting goals for yourself, but you should be realistic when it comes to what you want to achieve. If you try to set an unrealistic goal, it will only set you up for failure and make it nearly impossible to save money. You need to be able to determine the difference between a realistic goal and an unrealistic goal. If you have an unrealistic goal, chances are that you will never be able to achieve it. This can lead you down a dangerous road. You may feel as though saving money is something that is impossible, which is not true at all. It's better to start small and work your way up, rather than trying to tackle a huge goal right out of the gate. If you want to get into the habit of saving money, start off with a smaller amount that won't hurt your budget too much, and then grow from there. Once you get used to saving this amount of money each month, increase it slightly until you find a comfortable number that works for your financial situation and needs. Number 9. Procrastination. Procrastination is a bad habit that can have serious consequences for your finances. The longer you put off dealing with something, the less time there is to deal with it. For example, if you have 10 days to pay your rent, it's easy to put it off until the day before and not panic. If you only have 3 days, you will probably be willing to pay a fine in order to get an extension. It's even worse when there are no penalties for waiting, like when you're saving up for retirement or trying to pay off debt. When you wait to save, you lose money due to inflation and risk losing more money on investments with higher returns. When you have debt and delay paying it off, your debt costs more in interest while your savings grow more slowly because they're being used elsewhere. You can combat procrastination by a number of things. Start planning ahead. Don't wait until the last minute or even the next week. Make saving or paying down debt a weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly task so it becomes second nature. Set reminders. It's easy to forget about things if they're not on your mind constantly, so set alarms on your phone or on other devices. For example, if you start saving $100 a month at age 30 and invest it until retirement at age 65 at an interest rate of 7%, you'll have $110,859. But if you start 10 years later at age 40 with the same $100 a month contributions and rate of return, you'll only have $62,885, less than half than what you would have had if you'd started earlier. Number 8. Letting subscriptions auto-renew. Subscriptions can be a great way to make sure you always have what you need, and that it's delivered right to your doorstep. But as great as subscriptions can be, there's also a downside. It's easy for your monthly costs to creep up without realizing it. That's why it's important to only subscribe to services or products you actually use, and that doesn't cost too much money when all added together. You should also check your recurring charges from time to time so that you know exactly where all of your hard-earned dollars are going. The last thing you want is to end up with a subscription to an overpriced service or product that doesn't bring any real value into your life. So think twice before letting subscriptions auto-renew. Number 7. Making impulse buys. Impulse buys can wreak havoc on your finances. They can wreck your credit, lead to unexpected bills, and cause you to spend more than you had planned. The biggest problem with impulse buys is that they are usually unplanned purchases. Not only does this increase your total spending, but it also often leads to purchasing items that you don't need. For example, if you go shopping for clothes and end up buying a new TV, then you're spending money on something that you didn't plan for. This increases your overall spending and can make it difficult to stick to a budget. A better option would be waiting until the next paycheck comes in before making any major purchases such as these. Another reason why impulse buys are bad for your finances is that they lead to unexpected bills or other financial obligations. Moreover, impulse buys can lead people into debt because they don't often consider how much money they will have left over after paying off their purchase before making another transaction later down the road. Let's look at a real-life case of buying a $10,000 car. If you are responsible with your money and make an effort to save it, you will probably be able to save up enough to buy a $10,000 car without taking out a loan and paying interest. If you don't plan ahead and make an impulse buy and take out a loan for the car instead of saving up, you'll pay interest on the loan, and that means paying more money than the sticker price for the car. Let's say the car has a 5% annual interest rate. A $10,000 loan would cost you about $2,500 in interest over 5 years. That means you'd pay $12,500 in total for the car. A case like this will contribute to failing to save money no matter what. Number 6. You spend when you're feeling bad. Spending when you're feeling bad can prevent you from saving money in several ways. For instance, it could lead to a spending splurge or cause you to spend on things that aren't necessities. When you're feeling bad, it's easy to justify spending as a way of cheering yourself up. But if this leads to an overall spending splurge, there's a good chance your finances will suffer because of it. This can be especially true if you don't have a spending plan in place and don't know how much is appropriate to spend without impacting your savings goals in the long run. Another reason why spending when you're feeling bad isn't good for saving up money is that it could cause you to buy something that's not actually necessary. If this happens, your finances may take a hit and make saving money more difficult than it is, especially if the non-necessity is expensive or causes you to spend more money over time. Number 5. You don't have an emergency fund. Ideally, everyone should have a nest egg of cash set aside in case of unexpected expenses or job loss. However, if you don't have any savings set aside, you won't have access to that money when an emergency arises and will be forced to rely on credit cards or other loans in order to pay for it. Having an emergency fund provides you with peace of mind. Knowing that this money will be there when you need it means that if something unexpected happens, you won't have to feel anxious or afraid about how you'll pay for it. That gives you the freedom to focus on handling whatever the problem is and moving forward with your life rather than worrying about money. Number 4. You haven't set savings goals. Setting a saving goal is a crucial part of building the financial future that you want. When you set a specific goal, you have something tangible to work towards. And when you meet that goal, it can be incredibly rewarding and motivating. This doesn't mean saving should feel like a burden. Instead, think of it as an opportunity to get creative. Find ways to make saving fun. Whether that's trying a new recipe every week or planning a trip with your savings. Saving goals can be short-term or long-term, depending on what your goals are. A short-term goal might be to save up for a vacation, or it could be to save up for an emergency fund. A long-term goal could be to save for retirement, buy a house, or pay off debt. Number 3. You don't set aside money every month. One of the most important aspects of saving money is setting aside a specific amount every month as soon as possible after getting paid. If you don't set this up from the start, it can be difficult to make yourself do so later on. If this sounds like you, then you must know that this is a prevalent problem among all people in the world. According to a survey by GoBankingRates.com, nearly 62% of Americans have less than $1,000 in their savings accounts, and 21% don't even have a savings account. Number 2. You are not tracking your expenses. Tracking your expenses helps you get a clearer picture of where your money goes every month, which can be very advantageous for you to be more informed about decisions you make with your spending. Tracking your expenses can also help you identify areas where you may be able to cut costs, like shopping for less expensive alternatives for recurring purchases or figuring out ways to reduce your bills. Tracking expenses is also important for business owners. Not only does it allow you to keep track of how much money is coming in and going out of the business, but it makes filing taxes easier since all of the information will be in one place. You'll also know exactly how much profit your company is making each month or year by simply looking at an expense report, instead of having to manually calculate everything yourself, which could take hours. Additionally, if you're working with other people on projects or need funding from investors, keeping track of expenses will let them know that their money is being well spent and used efficiently. If you enjoyed it so far, please like this video and leave a comment. What is your best way to save money? Number 1. You get easily tempted to spend. Most people are familiar with the idea that spending money on a flashy new item can be bad for your finances. However, many experts believe that simply seeing the item can have the same effect on your ability to save. It's called mental accounting. According to this theory, when you see something you want, whether it's a new pair of shoes or a new car, you mentally set aside a certain amount of money to pay for it. This is true even if you leave the store without buying anything, and it can lead to overspending because you've already spent that money in your mind. You can stop yourself from setting aside every dollar you see by trying not to think of yourself as someone who doesn't spend much money. You don't need to say, "I'm such a cheapskate," or call anyone else a cheapskate either. Research has shown that it can actually make you less likely to save money. Instead, consider using one of these phrases: "I like a good bargain," or "I know what I like when I see it." In fact, according to a recent survey by Bankrate.com, just 39% of Americans have enough money in their savings account to cover a $1,000 emergency expense like car repairs.